Humans. We seem rational until we're able to look back on our decisions. And in this case, on jobs of our past. Jobs that seem bizarre now, and well, probably bizarre then too. The first example of this comes from the history of court dwarfs. Yeah, believe it or not, throughout ancient antiquity and pre-modern times, dwarfs were commonly owned, as it was seen as sort of a power move to own them, or due to their size, they would make the king or queen appear much larger when stood beside them, really exemplifying their position. Court dwarfs also had a role of entertaining guests and the ruler in a similar way to jesters, and were highly regarded in their given societies, with recorded histories of court dwarfs coming from several regions and areas, from ancient Greece, Egypt, Rome, and China, to pre-modern Russia, France, Great Britain, Poland, Spain, and Sweden. Yeah, so pretty much everybody dabbled in court dwarfs. But who actually owned them, and when? The first recorded examples come from ancient Egypt, as owning a dwarf would reward you with high social status, followed by Julia, niece to Roman Emperor Augustus, who owned 2 dwarfs. However, the first recorded example of specified court dwarfs comes from ancient China, sometime between 259 and 210 BC, with the recorded example of Yao Zhan, a court dwarf from the first emperor of Qin, and again later during the Tang and Han dynasties, with one recorded example coming from the emperor Xuanzhou, who created a resting place for monsters, amongst of which were dwarfs, and Emperor Wu Di, who also imported dwarfs. During this time, dwarfs were commonly imported through the Silk Road. More modern examples of this occupation come mainly from Europe, such as Natalia Alexeyevna, who had 93 court dwarfs. Wow, yeah. During this time, dwarfs were both popular to own and gift, which meant many rulers frequently received them as gifts. However, most court dwarfs were employed as such, and held permanent positions within wherever they were, in some cases even acting as diplomats. Likewise, upon their retirement, they often received pensions and benefits. The first recorded history of a court dwarf is Geoffrey Hudson. Hudson was known as the French Queen Henrietta Maria's dwarf, and was also known as Lord Minimus, and was one of the wonders of the age. Hudson also fought with the Royalists in the English Civil War, fled with the Queen, was expelled when he killed a man in a duel, and was captured by Barbary pirates and held in North Africa for 25 years. Huh. I can see why people thought dwarfs were so cool. Oh, and here's a painting of him titled Hudson in the Woods. But yeah, there are a bunch of examples, which would take far too long to cover in this video, but here are some brief, other examples. Philip IV, Princess Sophia of Sweden, and a bunch of others. Yeah, it's pretty wild. The next occupation in this video is thief takers. Yeah, taking the takers. This bizarre occupation was essentially the role of early law enforcement, and much like the priest hunters in the previous video, they come from English history, and were employed as a private force in a similar manner to bounty hunters. The reason for this occupation's existence is due to the period of English history, which saw an increased rate of crime, but no specialized police force, matched with citizens who wanted some form of intervention. Thief takers were private citizens who worked for a fee or a reward, and were tasked with bringing crooks to justice or retrieving stolen goods. So yeah, I suppose they really were the thieves of thieves. However, this occupation also did not exist without corruption, as thief takers were also known to make the criminals pay a protection fee to avoid prosecution. So who were the real crooks? The next occupation is coffee sniffers. Yeah, this occupation is quite bizarre, but who were the coffee sniffers, and where does their history begin? Coffee sniffers were primarily employed within the Kingdom of Prussia under King Frederick II between 1781 and 1787. Why? The job itself was created due to the recently imposed tax on coffee, created as the kingdom wanted to boost their economy and support the local trade of beer and chicory. The coffee sniffers themselves consisted of 400 war invalids, and held the role of sniffing out the illegal roasting of coffee. And other than the Kingdom of Prussia, this state, from the Holy Roman Empire, also employed coffee sniffers to enforce a similar ban on coffee during a similar period. The next occupation is knocker-ups. This occupation was that of a human alarm clock, and existed primarily within the Industrial Revolution, throughout the Netherlands, Britain, and Ireland. The workers were employed to wake other workers up so that they could get to their jobs on time. They did this through banging on their doors with a baton or their windows with a long bamboo stick. The workers of this occupation were often older men, pregnant women, or on occasion, police officers on their morning routes. The average pay for a knocker-up was a few pence a week, and surprisingly, this occupation was still active until the 1970s in some parts of England. Later knocker-ups were also known to substitute their sticks for pea shooters. Here is an interesting postcard depicting a knocker-up and a worker. The next and final occupation of this video is burlaks, who held the seasonal job of boat pulling. This profession existed primarily within the Russian Empire throughout the 16th to 19th century, and was a profession consisting mainly of landless and poor peasants, who worked in groups from 4 to 6 people to on occasion as many as 150 people, and were employed to literally pull boats. Thanks for watching. Now you know a little bit more about the history behind some very bizarre jobs that humans had at one point in recorded history. If you enjoyed, consider liking, commenting on what you thought of the video and its contents, and subscribing for my future content. Any of these help to grow the channel and allows me to create more videos. See you all in the next.